All right, thank you, everyone. We'll kick off right at 1:30 here. So we'll call the order and recognize that we're conducting our business today principally on the territories of the Hoopanchis and Shok First Nations, and to recognize, honor, and respect that fact. With that, we're also coming to you live in a hybrid format, so that many of us are coming to you from Nuu-chah also, perhaps even Coast Salish or Lekwungen-speaking territories as well. I would note that Director Steer isn't here, so I think he's in Bella Bella, so I think that's Kwakwaka'wakw, but I'm not sure. Now, with that, we do have to provide notice to attendees that of all the folks who are in the room today, as well as anybody who may be watching after the fact. So we're going to identify ourselves around the table here, including staff, and then we'll go through and identify all the folks online as well. You don't need to turn your cameras on, but if you just turn your microphone on when it's your turn, it'll be good, and I'll call you up. So with that, I'm John Jack. I'm a director for WID, and I'm the chairperson. Which way do we go? Not clockwise. We'll go this way.
Janice Hill, Executive Assistant for the Regional District.
Debbie Haggard, representative from the City of Port Alberni and Vice Chair of the Board.
Good afternoon. Aklama Penny Cote. I'm with the ACRD, the Sprout Lake Electoral Area Director.
Hi, Lorana Mastrangelo, Director from Utah South First Nation, Ucluelet.
Mike Sparrow, Director, Cherry Creek.
Colin McClellan, and I'm filling in for Susan Roth, Beaver Creek.
Bob Beckett, Director, Area A, Banfield.
Daniel Sayon, the CAO for the ACRD.
Okay, and then we'll go online here. Victor Siga. Vida, do you want to introduce yourself?
Veda Siga, ACRD Area C Rep. Thank you.
And Mayor McEwen.
Hi, Marilyn McEwen, Mayor of Ucluelet.
And Dr. Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. Fred Boyko, Electoral Area Director for Beaufort. Thank you.
And Mayor Minions.
Thank you, Shari Minions, Mayor for the City of Port Alberni and Director on the ACRD.
Thank you. And Wilfred.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wilfred Coots, appointed for the Yochuckles Tribe Government. Good to see you all. True.
Thank you. And let's see, is that everyone else? Okay. We can probably provide or move forward now. So with that, that brings us to the approval of the agenda. I would mention that we do have two late material pieces for 9.1A and 9.1C. So these are late submissions. They're included on the table here for everyone, and it should be in your email as well. So we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Thank you, Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any comments? Director Boyko, go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to wave my hand in a second, but thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us into item 3. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest, perceived conflict of interest, or gifts exceeding $250 in value? Seeing none, I think we can move on to the adoption of minutes. 4A is the Board of Directors meeting dated September 27, 2023. Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Dr. Sparrow. Thank you. Any further comments? Errors, omissions, deletions, etc.? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the minutes? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item B, which is the Electoral Area Directors Committee meeting dated September 27, 2023. It's moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, third, we have the Alberni Valley Aquatic Center Advisory Committee meeting dated October 3rd, 2023. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Director Cote, and seconded by Director Hager. Further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Brings us to item D. There's one left after this. West Coast Committee dated October 4th, 2023. West Coast Committee. Okay. Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any comments? Oh, Director McEwen, please go ahead.
Just a note that my last name is spelled wrong in the West Coast Committee minutes. I think it's just a copy paste error because all the West Coast Committee minutes have my last name spelled wrong. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. It's McEwen, like the author. All right. All those in favor of adopting the minutes? All opposed? Motion carried. And lastly, we have the Solid Waste Management Plan Advisory Committee meeting dated October 4th, 2023. Thank you, Director Sparrow, for moving. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Beckett. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Alrighty. That brings us to item 5. We don't have any petitions or delegations this time around. We have item 6, correspondence for action. 6A is a request for funding contribution from the Western Vancouver Island Industrial Heritage Society. Then, would anyone like to speak to this? Daniel?
Thank you. I can. There's a recommended motion there from staff to provide a letter of support. I think what's important to flag is that we don't have a specific fund that would match the request. So we could either defer this to a discussion around grants and aid, or in this case, what staff are recommending is that we support their application to ICE for the funding that they're looking for.
Director Haggard and then Director Cote.
I'd like to move that the ACRD Board of Directors resolve to provide a letter of support for the Western Vancouver Island Heritage Society grant application, that the request for funding from the ACRD be in the 2024 grant and aid application process.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Beckett. Comments, Director Cote? Oh, you're just going to move it. Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 7, which is correspondence for information. Would anyone like to pull anything out? Okay, Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. So number G, page 51 to 57, potential listing of the Okanagan Chinook Species at Risk Act. I'm just wondering if there's anything that is similar to our area with the Chinook returns, because I know that it has been a problem in the past. Thank you.
I'm going to try to put Wilfred on the spot. Do you recall anything that Monmouth tables about Chinook on the West Coast?
Not off the top of my head. Yeah, I'll gather some information and I can get back.
Well, we can do that at a future report. Okay,
Yeah.
I pull out one other item out of correspondence for information. I just want to mention that it is Foster Family Month in BC. And while that's kind of a weird thing to say, I did receive some correspondence from the New Charles Tribal Council, USMA, and they were looking for foster families as well. So it feels as though this is a widespread difficulty across all of our communities, and therefore Foster Family Month should be something that we mention out loud, just to see if there are any folks who are available to be foster families. You do a world of good in doing so. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Are there any other items to be pulled out? Director Sparrow, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to pull out just 7A, the Cherry Creek Waterworks Improvement District Study, just noting that it is moving ahead and hopefully by the end of this year, there should be some direction on what we can do moving forward.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, could we have a motion to receive the correspondence? Thank you, Director Beckett, seconded by Director Haggard. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. All right, that brings us into item 8. 8A is a request for decision regarding the Long Beach Airport REDIP grant funding application. Terry, please go ahead.
Thank you. So this is an application to do a Long Beach Airport plan, which I think is not new news to anyone around here. We've actually applied for this grant once before and used the feedback received from the staff to update our proposal and get a letter of support from Tloquit. So looking for the board's support in applying for this grant.
Great. Any comments or questions, or there is a motion here attached to it? Yeah. Oh. Dr. Segal, would you like to move? Oh, you just muted yourself. I think you're unmuted the whole time.
Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move that the Alberta and Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors support the grant funding application to the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program for the Long Beach Airport Land Use and Development Plan Project.
I'll second.
Thank you, Director McEwen. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Your motion carried. Thank you. I'm just gonna quickly do a bit of a pause. George is gonna come in and adjust the speakers in here a bit down. While we do that, I'm wondering if, Fred, if you can do a sound check so that we can see the sound levels.
This is your sound check as requested. Is that formal enough?
Let's keep going. I think he's adjusting it.
Request for funding contribution, Western Heritage Island Industrial Heritage Society, dated September 25th.
Cool. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know what else to say.
I'd have done the exact same thing. Okay, so thank you, George. That brings us to item B, which is a request for decision regarding the grant application for the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund for volunteer and composite fire departments equipment and training. Charlie, please go ahead.
Yeah, this fund is one that we also ran last year and were successful in. Each of the departments qualified for up to $30,000 in equipment, and a variety of equipment has been submitted for grant funding. Here to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Any comments or questions or motions? Director Coetzee, please go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate the grant coming in. Spirit Lake has looked after this for, oh, wrong one, sorry, has been looking after their equipment and training to the taxpayers. Anyways, I'll make the recommendation that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional Board of Directors support the application for funding from CEPF Volunteer and Composite Fire Departments equipment and training for the purchase of forest fire fighting equipment and training, and direct staff to provide overall grant management for the project if successful for the following departments: Beaver Creek Fire Department $30,000, Sprout Lake Fire Department $30,000, Banfield Fire Department $30,000.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Haggard. Any further comments? Dr. Sparrow, go ahead.
Well, thank you. It's always important to try and get these grants for the fire departments. I know through forest fighting, and I don't know if Mr. Beckett does or not, but when you do forest firefighting, you go through a lot of equipment fast because the wear and tear on the hoses is tremendous. And the equipment usually doesn't last very long out there for the adverse conditions you use. So it looks like a lot of money, but it can be eaten up very fast with repetitive use. So it's good to have it.
Thank you. Good to know. It's good supplemental. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Oh, you're up next as well. So the next item is a request for decision regarding grant application for the Fire Chiefs Association of BC. Please go ahead.
This grant is coming from the Office of the Fire Commissioner and being managed by the Fire Chiefs Association of BC. There is a $1.5 million for the province to enhance live fire training throughout the province. And the only thing we have locally is the Sprout Lake Training Center, which is not ideal, but we will have asked for this new equipment to supplement what's there, and we can move it to a new site in the future if need be. Any questions? I'm here to answer them.
Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through Chair, I'm just wondering if there has been any movement at all for looking for a new site.
None of the departments have budget for a site at this point, but we are doing some background work and have identified a couple of potential areas for a new site. And we'll continue to move forward ever so slowly, but we are moving forward.
If there's no more questions, I'll make the motion that the Alberni-Claycourt Regional District Board of Directors support the grant funding application to Live Fire Training Center project program from the Office of the Fire Commissioner for the Sprout Lake Fire Department.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Sparrow. Any further comments? Director Sparrow, go ahead.
Thank you again. For the Live Fire Training Center, it also is a valuable asset. It's been on probably 15, 20 years now, and it's been used all that time. I know they want to look at a new site, which is great, but I remember when they first got this site, it was probably 5 to 8 years of fighting through all the bureaucracy of getting it there. And one of the biggest challenges they had was environmental, because of the location where it is, and of course you're putting in smoke into the air, so it's not ideal, but they have it, so it's great to keep it. And if they can keep it up, the training's invaluable, so it's always good to have their site.
You bring up an interesting point, one that probably requires either lobbying or engagement, lobbying with Victoria or engagement with the Air Quality Council as well. So I think that's something we should continue moving forward with. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item D. Thank you, Charlie. That brings us to item D, Cherry Creek Water Conversion Consultant. Terry, please go ahead.
Thank you. So the Cherry Creek Waterworks Improvement District has been working with the ACRD, and we got grant funding from the province to look at a conversion possibility or governance study. And so this is for a consultant. We went out to RFP and received 2 quotes back, and are recommending that we proceed with Connections Planning Associates. They have familiarity not only with the Cherry Creek area, but their staff also have familiarity with our regional district and have converted or have looked at governance of conversion of improvement districts before. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. It says that there's $5,000 of consultant costs that will be split between the ACRD, and it was budgeted as part of the general government consult cost. So that's all of the ACRD or just the valley? Thanks.
No, that's the whole ACRD. So part of getting the grant from the province was a commitment from the board to look at this governance. We need to talk about if they were to convert, what that would look like as a regional district service. So a small amount, it'll be $2,500 from the general government service budget from the regional district, and then $2,500 from Cherry Creek Waterworks. And that is a requirement of the province, is to have some cost sharing mechanism in there when we are receiving these funds.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions or motions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Sparrow. Do you want to read it out, please?
I'd like to make the motion that the Alberni-Claycourt Regional District Board of Directors award the Cherry Creek Waterworks District Conversion Consultant contract to Connections Planning Associates Limited in the amount of $40,000, excluding GST. Authorize the CAO to negotiate and execute the contract on behalf of the regional district.
Fine. Thank you, Director Cote. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thanks. All right, that brings us to item E, which is a request for a decision regarding the Community Workforce Response Grant application. for the meat processing fundamentals program. Mike, please go ahead.
So this is a grant funding opportunity provided by the federal government through CMHC. And the opportunity is to support increased housing supply. This application relates to the housing supply in the rural areas of the regional district. And the action plan that is proposed in the report is based on current ACRD projects and primarily led by the planning department. These projects and initiatives align with the initiatives set out by CMHC. So there was certain.
Mike, I'm gonna interrupt you. I think you're ahead of us. Sorry, it's the.
I'm sorry. I'm doing the.
Yeah, you're doing
CMHC
G.
one. Thank you.
We're on E. Sorry. Yeah.
My apologies. So this isn't related to housing supply, it's related to meat cutting. So this is this one is an application in partnership with North Island College. It is a program that has been offered before, and we have done this. I would note that North Island College has received many calls from retail meat outlets and farmers in the region looking for trained staff. So staff, well, this is a targeted application. We have had discussions about other opportunities for hobbyists and local farmers, and we are still exploring those opportunities. And we recommend the board support this application, and I am happy to answer questions. I'll finish in a bit on the other.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? This was a pretty successful program the first time we did it. Dr. Sparrow, go ahead. Oh, your mic's on now. Oh, sorry. Dr. Haggard, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say, I think this is a fantastic initiative, and I'd like to make the motion that the Alberni Quayquat Regional District Board of Directors support the grant application to the Community Workforce Response Grant for the Meat Processing Fundamentals Program and direct staff to provide overall grant management for the project if successful.
Great. Do we have a seconder? Dr. Cote, did you have a comment as well?
I do, thank you. I did used to sit on the Agricultural Development Committee, and I think that this aligns with what they've brought forward in the past, looking to expand the abattoir form for our area because we're lacking. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? If seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. All right, item F, West Coast Transit. Gary, please go ahead.
Thank you. So the ECRD staff have been working with Watt Consulting and PWT, which is Pacific Western Transportation, as we near an implementation of this service. So working out the details and had some good discussion at the West Coast Committee regarding what sort of service level that we wanted to implement at this time. And so after a great deal of discussion and a balancing of the costs of this new service, which is quite high when we don't have BC Transit coming to the table with us as a partner, and then actually developing a service that's going to be usable for the communities. The recommendation from the committee was to go with a high level of service, which is approximately 5,700 annual service hours. And we're going to continue to move through the implementation, hoping for, I believe, like early 2024, hoping like February, maybe March, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, would anyone like to move either of the motions, or is it one motion? That's two. Oh, Dr. McEwen, please go ahead.
Thank you. I will move that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve moving forward with the high-level schedule of approximately 5,700 annual service hours for the West Coast Transit Service in 2024. Are we doing them separately or together?
Let's do them separately. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Dr. Beckett. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
And I will move that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors delegate authority to the CAO for the negotiation and execution of an operating agreement with Pacific Western Transportation for a maximum amount of $670,000 excluding GST.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Director Strangelo. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. All right, the next up is item G, back to CMHC.
All right, so I'll carry on. Sorry about that. I am actually excited to present this application. I think it could be very helpful and beneficial to the ACRD. So I did introduce it. I won't repeat what I said. Other than it relates to the rural housing in the rural areas. In making this grant application, we worked to identify areas and align with projects that we have already completed in some cases or are part of the work plan between now through 2025, and really would provide some significant funding to the ACRD. And some of those examples, are the recent bylaw change to increase the square footage for accessory dwelling units that was passed in July. Reviewing the development cost charges that the Community Services Department has done, reviewing minimum lot sizes for accessory dwelling units, the climate action initiatives that are underway through the regional district, as well as others. And really, in addition to the funding to do the plan and the work there is significant funding for other for local infrastructure upgrades that could be applied to things such as sewer and water and community infrastructures, which could be parks and also fire departments. So I will stop there, other than to mention that a lot of the heavy lifting in this report was done by Amy Mayo, and I want to acknowledge that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any comments or questions? Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm interested to learn more about what could be coming forward through the infrastructure for parks and fire departments. Is there some place that we can look to see that, or is it just in the development stage? Thanks.
I think it's in the development stage, and I would want to reach out to our grants coordinator to get some of the details on that. We had talked about it, and it's sort of the program, as I understand it, is based on meeting some of the targets, so we would get some funding up front, and then as we meet those targets, there would be the infrastructure funding coming along. And the intent is that it is in the local areas, in the areas that have had the increased housing to support that development.
So just wondering if this is shovel-ready projects.
No, this is the work we're doing. So, and as I mentioned, some of it is we get credit for work that we've already done recently. So some of those things, those boxes have already been ticked, and the other things are things that we're talking about. So some of the housing options and increasing housing supply are part of the community plan workshops that we did the first one in Beaufort last night, and then we're continuing on through the next month. So we've had some of that discussion will be there, and then changes that potentially could come through the OCPs and the and zoning bylaw.
Seems as though we could use some time to talk about how we can make the whole process of planning around making more housing a reality, making that more efficient as well. Is that something that would be covered off by this?
Yes, that is also part of what we're looking at. Things I didn't go through everything, but where changes have been made to the development permit approval process, where more of it's delegated to staff and streamlined. That is also some things that count as credit. Looking at amenity contributions, looking at the building permit process, and streamlining that. Those are all things that are included in this as well.
Thank you. Okay, I have Terry and then Dr. Boyko, and then back to Dr. Cote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to say it's kind of the first time we've had a grant like this. So the grant isn't based on do they like the project that we proposed. It's really based on are we going to get the growth. So if we're awarded it, it's going to somewhat depend on how much growth and housing and development we have. It does not appear that there are a lot of restrictions on how we choose to use that money, as long as it's linked to growth. We'll obviously have a lot of reporting, but at this point, the application will go in, but we'll be talking further about what area the growth is being experienced in. There's a long list from fire departments to water systems to sewage systems that we could definitely apply this funding towards. But I would say the first priority from a staff perspective is those planning processes that Mike was just talking about, and making sure that we have the processes and the plans and the staff available to make growth like that achievable in our area. And then if we get to that infrastructure part, we'll have a discussion about what exactly that looks like and what projects are going to align best with it and don't align with other programs. So a little bit of a different grant application for us, and we'll have to learn more if we're accepted and see how this CMHC runs a grant such as this.
Thank you. Director Boyko?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we're talking about lots of grants and maybe some future money in the future in different ways, but what about ever happened to the Growing Communities Fund where we actually had money presented to us for different applications and different tangible items? But we haven't talked about that since March and April. Whatever happened with that? So I thought that had to be spent by the end of this year. Thank you.
Carrie, can we go back to you?
Yeah, we're going to discuss that on the morning of November 8th as part of the committee of the whole. We were waiting for the new strategic plan to kind of be developed, and looking at that we do not have to spend the money by the end of the year. We have about 5 years. They actually don't have a deadline on the spending. We do have to determine what we want to spend the money on by the end of the year and set out a plan that we will pass by the board. So staff's plan is discuss it at November 8th committee of the whole, and then bring it back for further discussion at a board level at that late November meeting. And if still more discussion is required, we will finalize what our listing is at this point at the December meeting. Does not mean that list is set in stone. We are able to change it beyond that point. We just have to have a plan. And then if we get other grants, such as some of these that we might potentially apply for, then we can pivot as we go along. But that is our plan at this point with it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Terry. Next up, we have Dr. Cote, I believe, and then Dr. Sparrow.
I was just going to make the motion.
We might as well do it now.
Okay, I will move that the Alberni Quayquat Regional District Board of Directors support the grant funding application to the Housing Accelerator Fund program for the incentive funding, and approve the grant application action plan for the ACRD to create conditions for increased housing supply.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Sparrow. And did you have a comment? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. In regards to this grant, it's for like the sewer, water, fire departments. Is that to help the existing infrastructure with replacement parts, or is that only for extension of lines for new subdivisions, or is that part of the grant at all? Anybody know?
That one.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
I'm sorry. Yes. So that part we're not completely clear of. We think there can be some replacement, because the replacement will, like, if there's additional dwelling units put within an existing service area, then there is going to be an impact on that service area, and there'll be, for example, more flow of water in the area potentially. They are not clear, which means to me that we have some ability to make those determinations. Most areas, if you talk water, we're doing upgrade of size anyways. We're needing fire flows and we're increasing the size of the line. So it's considered a renewal, not necessarily just a replacement. So it would definitely qualify. Like a new fire hall qualifies. I believe there was even some speculation from staff, but we haven't actually confirmed that even new fire apparatus may qualify in some situations. If we can get it, and if we can get this grant from CMHC, I think there's going to be lots of options of where we can spend that component on, for sure.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Has been moved and seconded. So all in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, we are flying. Let's move to item 9. This is planning matters. So this is for electoral area directors only, but non-EA directors do count for quorum, so don't disappear for too long. Next item is 9.1A. It is a I believe it's a rezoning application. Mike, please go ahead.
So this is a property at 5447 Maybell Road. The property owner had applied to rezone their 2.8 acre property from a small holdings A1 district to RA3 district, and with the intention after that to subdivide the property into 3 lots. I do want to note that the RA3 district zoning would support 0.6 of an acre minimum lot sizes for a subdivision. The conceptual subdivision plan included 2 lots, approximately 0.34 hectares, so about 3/4 of an acre, on the vacant lots in the east half of the property. That would be accessed by Panhandle to Maybell Road, and then a 0.47, so just over 1 acre lot that contains the existing house. At the September 13th meeting, the board resolved to consider first reading at a future date and give notice in accordance with section 467 of the Local Government Act. So that's where a public hearing is not held. On September 26th, notice sign was posted on the property and notice was mailed out and put in the newspaper as required. I would note that the ACRD has received 17 letters of correspondence from addresses representing 11 different properties in the neighborhood. All of the letters received expressed general opposition to the rezoning and cite concerns about water system capacity, traffic and road policing, density, environmental impacts, etc. If I do want to talk about the options that the board has at this point, if the board does wish to further this rezoning application, they could proceed with what's presented in the agenda with 3 readings. There is also the option to hold a public hearing and have further public input and an opportunity for the property owner to participate and respond in a public hearing. And that option is laid out on page 99 of the agenda. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions? Go ahead. That's usually not how this works. I'm sorry. The way that this works is that the discussion is restricted to directors here. But Dr. Sparrow, you had a comment? Please go ahead then.
I'd like to make a motion that bylaw P1484 Regional District Alberni Claycourt Zoning Atlas Amendment bylaw be read for the first time.
Seconder? Excuse me, sir. Thank you, Director Beckett. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? 3, 4. Motion carried. Thank you. Fred, did you have a comment or a question? Director Boyko, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I was just trying to understand the process here about the public hearing. Is this, so it was not, this property was not set up to have a public hearing, but is that something that we can go back to? Or is that something that we're just going to do the 3 readings and carry on here?
Mike?
Yeah, so I'm certainly happy to answer the question. Yes, there is the option to hold a public hearing after the bylaw needs to get first reading. So that is an option that's presented in the report, and that would give an opportunity for neighboring properties and the property owner to present their views and the application to the board.
So regardless, we would do first reading first, though.
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. What's your sense, Dr. Sparrow?
I'll make a second next motion if I can, or do you want me to? It'll become clear when we do the second motion. Okay.
Let's go ahead.
That the public hearing for bylaw P1484 be delegated to the Director of Electoral Area F, the alternate director, or the chairperson of the regional district.
Great. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Dr. Cote. Any further comments? Go ahead, Dr. Sparrow.
Thank you. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of letters coming back, or form letters, but I'd like to know what was going on and have a public hearing to hear both sides so we can actually come back to the board with a final decision if we can. So it would be great.
Thank you, Director Sparrow. Dr. Beckett, did you have a comment?
I did. I'm just looking for some clarification. I'm wondering if Director Michael had, with asking the question, did you have concerns? So that's one part of my questioning. And secondly, just for clarification from Director Sparrow, you are leaning towards requiring or requesting a public hearing. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
That is correct. Yeah, leaning towards a public hearing with this. All the comments that came back so far have been on one side, which is to look at a public hearing. So hopefully a public hearing, we can hear the concerns of the people in the area, and also we can hear the applicant and what the plan is moving forward, so we can have both sides of the story. Right now, all we have is the applicants written through the regional district, and then we have the complaint side of the public. So hopefully a public forum will be able to address all the concerns, and we can figure out what we can do moving forward. Move.
Through the chair, thank you for that, Director Sparrow. And Director Boyko, is there anything that you could add, please?
Go ahead, Director.
I think what, sorry, Chair. I think what Director Sparrow just said, I would concur with everything about that. If there's something is quote controversial, however you want to say that, it should go to a public hearing, get everybody to be able to say whatever they want. And I like the idea of form letters, but I don't know if it's the best way to get the reaction from everyone else in the public, and let the landowner have his say and say what he wants and get those things in writing so the board members have a better idea what's going on there. This is the second time this property's come up with some kind of public opposition for some reason. And some of the reasons may be valid, some might just be some NIMBYism going on. And it's a matter of getting it as most accurate and fair for everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Dr. Cote?
I was going to say about the same thing. So it's all about fairness and transparency. And I think that this one warrants a public hearing. Thank you.
All right, with that then, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. So there will be a public hearing at some point. All right, so that brings us to item B, which is...
Sorry, if I could just interrupt. There would also be a requirement to delegate the public hearing to the director for Cherry Creek. I don't think that, so we see first reading and
well, he
is already done.
He read
Okay,
it out,
okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Just straight from the report, yeah. Okay, thank you for making sure that, Mike. Okay, next up is item 9.1B in regards to a development variance application. Go ahead.
Thank you. So this is a variance application for 10089 Bloor Road. The property owner plans to demolish the existing dwelling and then build a new dwelling and detached garage. They have applied for variance to vary the RA1 side yard district from 15 feet to 5 feet to accommodate a new dwelling. The board reviewed this application on September 13th and agreed to consider issuance following neighbor notification, and that neighbor notification has happened. We have this HRD has received letters from the neighboring property owners, and then staff have also talked to the property owner, and I think it's appropriate at this stage to defer the application, allow the property owner to provide a little bit more detailed information on the build and exactly what the variance will look like to share with the property owner. So they had mentioned that they may not need to go to 5 feet. So to have that clarified, and then we could bring it back to the board at a later date. So staff are recommending that this application be deferred and brought back to a subsequent meeting. And happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Director Cote?
And I apologize. I keep jumping around to the wrong one. That's actually the last application. I'm sorry. I'm reading my wrong reports here. So the one that we're dealing with is the Morrow on Blowdale Drive, and everything is fine with that one. And we recommend that we issue the variance on that. And I apologize.
Thank you for that, because it's very small variance. At this time, I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Directors issue development variance permit DVD 23005.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Beckett. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, now this is the next one. We've already spoken to it. Director Cote?
So I need to make a motion then to defer this.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion to defer this to the next meeting.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Director Sparrow. All those in favor? Bob, you can vote from there. Thank you. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, this is scary, guys. This brings us to item 10 and 10.1 staff reports. Oh man, we are going fast. It's 2:15. Okay, 10.1A. Karen, are you online? Oh, there you are. Okay, please go ahead.
Sorry, are you able to hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you. So you're.
Don't know why my camera's not working. Okay, well, I'll carry on. Sorry, my camera's turned on, but I'm not sure why it's not working. At the last board meeting, there was some discussion regarding Highway 4. So we prepared an information report to help address some of the questions and concerns that you may have. At last week, staff met with the city and the Ministry of Emergency Management and the Ministry of Transportation to discuss what would happen in the event that there was another road closure. What we know currently is that the detour route is no longer in use. So this is a major change from the summer. Modi has, when we talked to them, they have said that they completed all their remedial work and they believe that the highway is back to pre-existing conditions. They are not expecting any road closures related to the Cameron Bluff wildfires, but of course they're monitoring conditions closely. And it is possible that the road may be closed if there was any safety concerns. So with the detour route closing, this did change a little about EMCR's approach, and they have agreed to authorize emergency support services, which would provide accommodation, food, or incidentals if the road was closed again. This pre-approval is related to the road closure related to Cameron Bluffs wildfire only. Any other road closures would need to be assessed on a case basis. ESS itself is delivered on a needs assessment. So in keeping with the program policies, we would also be looking at support on a case-by-case basis as well. And it's important to note another change is that we have talked to EMCR and they've agreed that ESS would be provided on both the west and the east side of the potential road closure. And with all ESS, residents would be encouraged to find support from friends and family first. And then we would look, if there was no services available, we would look to providing hotels or group lodging as needed. We have a meeting next week with EMCR and RDN and Ucluelet and Tofino and our regional members and our First Nations to determine the best communication methods and coordinate response efforts as needed if the road does close in the future. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Excellent. Thank you. Any further comments or questions about the report? Thank you, Dr. Cote.
Thank you. So the ESS support on both sides of the Cameron Bluffs would be triggered by a slide or something like that, I'm sure. There has been closures in the past with wind and the threats that were suspect anyways, where people were stopped, myself included, and it is sort of last minute. So I'm wondering how, if we're going to be having these supports in place so that like a shovel-ready project, if they can be triggered right away. Thanks.
Yes, we would be providing ESS you're right, if there was a landslide or something clearly related to the wildfire, if it was due to branches falling down in Cathedral Grove, we would have to phone EMCR, for example, to find out if we have a task number for that. So they're just pre-authorizing ESS task numbers for specific to the wildfire. We are working on developing a plan to know what should happen as far as which facility we'd be using. And our ESS team is being prepped and ready. Penny, I'm not sure if I'm answering your questions, but we are making sure that we're prepped and ready so that if this should, the road closure should happen, that we are shovel ready, as you say.
All good, Director Cote? All right, thank you. Next up, we have Director McEwen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I sit on the Tourism Ucluelet Board as the mayor, and we had a meeting last week and I gave all the same information in this report to that group. The one thing that's not in this report is that Modi was very clear that the detour route would not be advertised unless Highway 4 was closed for 5 days or more. And the tourism group gave me a very strong message to give to Modi that that absolutely cannot happen. There are businesses teetering on the edge of bankruptcy from the summer. And apparently the CEBA loans that are due at the end of this year, we're given an 18-day extension because of the road being closed. So businesses have 18 extra days in January to repay the CEBA loans. And so I don't know what avenue to go. You said that there is a meeting coming up with all the parties. Maybe that's the time to bring this up, but the tourism group said a 5-day closure with no detour would absolutely ruin even more businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. We certainly have heard a lot from the businesses and the hardship that the road closure has caused them. I have not been told that 5-day trigger point of opening up a detour route. That's new information to me. So I will ask Modi if I can find some more details about that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Thanks. Yes, it was at the meeting that was held at the ACRD boardroom there with Josie Osborne in attendance, and Mike Pearson made that very clear. And so, yeah, that's good information for you to have.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Director McEwen and Karen. So Mike Pearson's from the ministry. Daniel, did you have go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think from the meetings that staff are attending with other staff, it's really about being prepared and being clear in advance. You know, if there is a road closure that does occur, first of all, the message we received from, we can see you now, Karen. The message we received from Modi staff was that because they are now back to pre-established conditions, really not expecting what we're talking about, but it's good to be prepared, right? And so it's on the side of being prepared that we want to make sure that should there be a closure of any duration where people are trapped, that we know in advance where people should go, that we can communicate that in advance in the same way that we did in the summer when we said, hey, this is how you should be prepared, pack water, pack a grab and go bag in your car just in case. All these little things that we want to make sure that we're repeating, but also to say that should something occur, this is where you should go to check in. And from there, ESS will handle your file. Round one will probably be hotel rooms, unless it's a huge event. And then we're having to do what we did in the summer where we set up cots in a gymnasium. So we just want to be ready for that. But being ready is very different from expecting it to happen. The message we got is we're back to pre-existing conditions and that we're really not expecting that type of multi-day closure. There may be some debris that gets cleaned up. There may be some heavy snow incidents that are not related to the fires and any debris falling. So we're back to regular conditions. We just want to be prepared and clear with messaging.
Dr. Sparrow, please go ahead.
Thank you. A few questions here. This says it's on privately owned industrial roads. How many miles of privately owned industrial roads was this route taking?
I'm sorry, I actually don't know the answer to that. I can certainly look into it and provide you with an answer, but I would be guessing too much to provide an answer at the moment. Did you have another question for me? I can try to answer a second one.
Daniel, go ahead.
I will echo what Karen said. We don't have the exact kilometerage, but we do know that any route, whether it be Horn Lake Connector, whether it be the Cowichan Connector that we use this summer, all go over private property. And so it's important to note that the work that we'll be doing as part of our alternative route and transportation committee is going to be reviewing those details and working with the right consultants, including the province, to talk about what routes would have, in essence, the best business case to present. And I know I'm digressing off of Karen's report on that one, but it's important to flag that will be an important element of discussion at the committee table.
Did you have any other comments?
Not really on this report, but something he said, so I'll wait for your talk and then I'll ask another question.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? So I wanted to take some time to mention the concerns that Director McEwen raised are things that we need to follow up on. This is adding up to a lot of lists or a lot of items on a list for lobbying and discussions we need to have in regards to not only this topic, but many topics in relation to the provincial government. So during our strategic planning and budgetary discussions in the future, it's very important for us to have a discussion about what are the types of things that you as a board want myself and the vice chair to represent to the provincial government outside of your kind of standard structured conversations at a VICC or UBCM and so on and so forth. A lot of these things seem to be outside of what we've normally been doing, but do require some specific attention, I think. Dr. Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you for that. It's not just the West Coast that's been affected. The city of Port Alberni, Sproat Lake, and all our rural areas have been affected by closures. It just comes as one more hit to our area after COVID and after strikes. And yeah, it's just one more nail in our coffin, shall we say. And we want to make sure that our communities are thriving and have economic diversity. But when our highways closed, it shuts off everything. Thanks.
Yeah, and it does seem like there's two different, or maybe even three different streams or three different pathways we want to take concurrently in order to get all of this done in a way that makes sense for our region. I think we should continue the work of the committee, first and foremost, the group that's working together on figuring things out. Second is working with highways, with transportation infrastructure on kind of staying on top of them in regards to what may happen on Highway 4, making sure that that's well understood and transparent, because I think a lot of our residents and voters are looking at that going, the sense that the highway is back to the same old is not really the case, and won't be accepted by our people as a result of that. And therefore, it's very likely we're going to have to see more pressure in regards to this. And Modi is probably one of the best at kind of denying those things, because A, everyone wants everything from Modi all the time, and B, they're used to saying no. So we need to find other avenues in order to prevent pressure, in order to get things changed, because a lot of this has to do with the designation of there is no alternate route. There's no official alternate route because there's no public route other than Highway 4 right now. Everything else goes over private land. The Bamfield Road, for all of the surfacing triumph that we had yesterday, is still an industrial road. It's not even a forest service road. I would dare say that I think it's the same thing for the lands that go by Horn Lake or go to Horn Lake. Dr. Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. Just to add to that, the province also has private roads or forestry roads or whatever name they want to put on it. And when we look at Sproat Lake and our emergency exit at the end of Sproat Lake down Taylor Arm, they're talking about decommissioning the Kurtz Crib, which would eliminate that access. So it's, to me, it's on the same lines as orphan dykes and whatever else that the province and the federal government is trying to offload and to take off of their just download to us. Thanks.
And government docs as well. Director Haggard, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's been a lot of talk about the impact of the road closures on small businesses and how it impacted the West Coast and our local community and how it's inconvenienced everybody. But everyone forgets about how it has impacted our industry locally. It was a huge impact on Catalyst, which cost them millions of dollars. And whoever owns it, wherever they are right now, they just couldn't comprehend that there's only one way into this community. So a concern that I have is when they're looking at closing mills, maybe they might be the number one at the top of the list. So we have to ensure that we do have something to enable industry to have an alternate route in case road closures happen again. Thanks.
That kind of lobbying concurrence and working with prospective partners like that was one of the key aspects of Kuwait being successful in the Banfield Road project. We're going to need to see some similar cooperation across local government, First Nations, and businesses, and that includes large businesses as well, perhaps with the most, as much verve as we can bring to the conversation, because that's literally the way that we're going to have to do this. It's really about volume and frequency of conversations. I would note that Director Boyko turned his video on. Did you have any comments as well, Director Boyko?
I'm going to comment when we get to the next couple items ahead, where my alternate director last time put forward a motion because we've been through this process several times, where he was one of the leading members of it in the past 2 decades from various other roles. So I'll talk about it then, but rehashing the same thing over and over again, where there's only a couple options, and we need to have some leadership and some examples in a timely manner to give to the public to focus on, because it has affected everybody, not just on the West Coast, but people on both sides of the lake as well. There's been weddings missed. I've missed flights. It's cost me personally thousands of dollars. I'm sure everyone else is in a similar role. So it is what it is. We need to find a solution that works for everybody and quickly. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, would anyone like to move to receive the report? Thank you, Director Sparrow, seconded by Director Beckett. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried, thank you. Okay, so that brings us to 10.2, which is area reports. And thank you, Karen. We'll start off with Area A. Banfield. Dr. Beckett, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to identify that Dr. Sean Rogers was recently renewed a 5-year contract as director for the Banfield Marine Sciences Center. This is an amazing facility. It provides educational opportunities that attract students and researchers from around the world. And I'm really excited about the vision that Sean and his staff have for the Banfield Marine Sciences Center. Number 2, fishing hikers, eco-tourists, kayakers all had an amazing experience this summer, considering the warm, sunny weather and the great fishing. Fortunately, we did not experience the terrible fires that many other BC communities had or experienced. And, you know, it was wonderful that we had this amazing summer, and we feel terrible for those communities that did or were impacted by the fires. We had a ribbon cutting for the new playground equipment installed on our East Side Centennial Park. And many thanks go out to our parks volunteer and to Michael McGregor and his team here who helped us with that. I know you're going to speak about this momentarily, Mr. Chair, but I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate the Hawaiian First Nation for their successful completion of the Banfield Road Reconciliation Project. You know, as I drove in this morning, It was absolutely an unbelievable transition from a goat path to a reasonable, comfortable, pleasant drive in. And hats off to Chief Robert Dennis, the Executive Council, and the entire Aitchison Nation. And finally, I'd like to thank and shout out to Daniel and staff for your time and effort that was spent the last couple of months on, I think, 4 visits to Banfield and Annaqua, and supporting a number of our challenges and our initiatives. I am so grateful to have the support of yourself and your staff and taking the time to meet face to face with our community members. So thank you. That's Banfield's report.
Thank you very much. That brings us to electoral area B, Dr. Boyko.
I'm not going to have as big of a follow-up as what Director Beckett just said. However, me personally, I was evacuated due to wildfire where I was working this weekend, and part of my structure actually burned down. So it does affect people in different ways. And specifically in Beaufort, we had a open house for the official community plan last night. It was not the best well-attended event. I think we had about 5 or 6 members of the public show up, maybe 7 or 8, a couple left early. And that sat there for the whole thing. We had a very good productive chat about the future and what we'd like to see in the OCP and zoning bylaws. But the theme was less is more. Less bylaws, less line items in the OCP, those kind of things. That's basically the theme. But I'm not sure that the current method of using the cafe style open house is the best attractive way to get members of the public to show up. Whereas when we hosted town hall there, we packed the Beaver Creek Hall with 140 people getting their fire capacity. So I think the plan forward will be to see how the other events go in the next couple of weeks in the different areas, and maybe a different approach is needed in each individual area. Thank you.
That brings us to electoral area C, Long Beach, Dr. Siga.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that the bike path is looking great. Looking forward to a grand opening when it gets organized, and wondering if there is any plan for any media or promotion of the bike path. And I think that's all. Thanks.
Neil, do you have a question or answer for that question?
No, I can answer that. I know that there were delays for the grand opening. So we are looking at the spring for the next date. We want to try and have some sunny weather. And I think we're also trying to coordinate with all the various interested parties that were part of the project to make sure that they can be there for that ribbon cutting. So right now staff are looking at dates in spring, but we certainly are going to be hitting a media splash and getting well ahead of it when we have that date ironed in.
Up is electoral area D, Sport Lake, Dr. Cote.
Thank you. Just like to say right off the top, thanks for everybody for your participation at UBCM. It was very well received. For Sprout Lake, living on a lake is our main concern, is water quality, of course. It continues to be. The lake level has come up, but it's still very low for this time of year. We usually see it rising because of rainfall. I don't see any snow in the hills yet, in the mountains. So we're going to be conducting a water test on Tuesday, October the 24th, which is the day after our public open house, so that if people want to pick up bottles for testing, they can. I run this program through the community association, so if people cover it's covered by cost. for the transportation through the community association. We did a beach cleanup on, what day was it? September 24th, I think. And I want to say thank you to the regional district for waiving tipping fees from that. Just, and the Fish and Duck for their environmental responsibility in providing their staff to help clean up and provide food and two houseboat and 2 pontoon boats to help to clean up the beaches, the Crown beaches. Like to say also that it was very obvious that the highway had been closed because there wasn't nearly the amount of garbage debris out on the Crown beaches that there has been in the past. Also, the Fish and Duck do fine people with houseboats if they leave a mess, and they do a really good job these days of cleaning up. So shout out to them. And I think that's just about all. I am going to be following up with the Somash Fish Flow Committee regarding the weir plates and the sweep that is at the mouth of Sproat River. And I got an email back from Bob Cole during the meeting asking about the Chinook and saying that Robertson Creek got their fish. There was quite a few at Sproat Lake because of the low level in Sproat River. The returns are not what they should be. We're hoping that the rain right now will actually help to mitigate any problems with the fish return. Thank you.
For that. Thank you. That brings us to electoral area E, Beaver Creek. Dr. McClellan.
Thank you. Susan left a letter for me to read to you people. She said, at this time we have poor control of one of the most important services of all, our drinking water. For the past decade, we've been buying bulk water from the city of Port Alberni, which has proven to be a problem. When we asked the city to include 2 Beaver Creek properties in the bulk water agreement, the city responded by ending our agreement. The city has its reasons. Regardless, we need to be in control of our own growth, and more importantly, we can't afford to mess around with drinking water. My main focus for Beaver Creek is to secure a good water source, whether it be the Stamp River or another water source. Then my focus will be on secondary water treatment. Chlorination alone is not enough. Once we have a good water source and advanced water treatment in place, we will have the safest drinking water in the Alberni Valley and one of the safest water supplies in the province. And Susan, thanks you.
Thank you for that. I do have a question for you. I heard that you headed out on the Banfield Road on your bike. How was that?
Wet, but awesome. Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item F, Cherry Creek. Dr. Sparrow.
Oh, thank you. Right now, not much is happening in Cherry Creek. It's been a quiet summer, except for the bears kicking around here and there, but that's normal. Tomorrow, we're going to have our open house for our OCP and bylaws. Hopefully, people will show up. This is so they can determine what they would like in their area for their bylaws and their OCP. I know there's been a lot of talk around about the ACRD directing it down, but actually this is what the community can put forward to designate what they want in their area for their growth and their expansion, what they want to see in the future. So tomorrow actually is an important date. Hopefully people will show up and will become available and they'll share their ideas and what we can do moving forward. And then we can go from there. And then going on further down the line, of course, we got the conversion study coming up and we have the aquatic center coming up and all the discussions. So I can see there'll be a town hall meeting to go over everything we need to go over to get people informed so they can make correct decisions what they feel like is in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. That brings us to item G, City of Port Alberni. Dr. Minions is no longer online. Dr. Haggard.
Mr. Chair, negotiations continue between the City of Port Alberni and our preferred developer for the Somas property. So we're hoping to be able to make the announcement who that is in the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be very exciting. It's really starting to move forward. So it's going to be great. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Item H is District of Tofino. Dr. Steer isn't able to make it, so we'll move on to item I, District of Ucluelet. Dr. McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At our council meeting yesterday, we had a really interesting delegation from the Bolinas Housing Society, formerly known as the Nanaimo Affordable Housing Society. And they've just recently changed their name. But unfortunately, the District of Ucluelet doesn't own a lot of land for projects for societies like this. This group build, own, and operate housing, mainly apartment blocks, because that's the best rate of return on building. And so they're looking at a possible location in Ucluelet to do some affordable / attainable housing. So it was a great presentation. Look them up on their website, Bolinas Housing Society. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Next up is item J, Huu-ay-aht First Nations. So Huu-ay-aht recently celebrated the completion of the Banfield Road Reconciliation Project. So that's just a fancy way of saying the Banfield Road has been not only kind of reconfigured with new safety features in key locations, as well as quite a lot of gravel and ditching material, as well as a new surface. That new surface is chip seal. So it's been completely finalized and complete. We expect it to serve the communities of Banfield and Nanuqla quite well, and that it will serve as a new piece of infrastructure that will really underline the importance and the diversification of our economy down there. And that'll really help kind of take us in addition to or build upon the resource-based economy that we have moving on down there. So quite a few people were in attendance. I do note that we have a strong attendance from the ACRD. I believe, Colin, I think you were there on the road anyway. I think you were with your pop, eh? Did you bring your, I think it was yours.
And my pop.
Oh yeah, okay. And then we went back up to the hall and had a great celebration. There were quite a few people in attendance. I thank everyone for the help and support that was granted, given that way as well. And other than that, we are moving forward with our own strategic planning in the next little while, as well as heading into our First Peoples Assembly after the election. So we may find that Huu-ay-aht is going to be quite busy in the next little while, making sure that we're prepared for all of the things that follow in the wake of creating easier access to a territory, all of the good things, and making sure we're trying to mitigate anything that could be viewed as bad, and really taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented. I'll just leave it at that. There's quite a lot that I could be saying, but that should be enough. And after that, next up is item L, the Ho-chunk-Lusett Tribe. Wilfred, Dr. Coutts, you have any report?
I do. I might as well. It's been official. We were in our election process. We had held our nomination meeting on September 27th, and their chief electoral officer had received all the full list of candidates. There will be an election for one seat, the My Family seat for family councillor, representative in the legislature, and there will be a suite of acclamations, myself included as the only candidate for the chief councillor position. So I will be acclaimed the chief councillor when that process is finished. So our general election day is November 11th, and it should be within the first, probably in the third week of December. I'll take that seat. Aside from that, we're really busy in the election cycle, so no other reports. True.
Well, on behalf of the regional district, my condolences, but no, not too late.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so the next up is the Krusenstaat First Nation government. Dr. Mastrangelo.
Hey. Yeah, so there's two events that happened recently. We did an unveiling of a sign at Quisitis, and that's next to the Wickaninnish Beach on September 18th. And Another recent stepping milestone in the right direction was the signing of the local education agreement with School District 70, between Pullet and Bismarck South Shore Station for children and education. And that's all. Thanks.
For that. All right. Can we have a motion to receive the reports? Thank you, Director Cote, seconded by Director Beckett. Comments? Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. Listening to the reports from the areas, I'd like to ask that we do a referral to the ACRD regarding the critical water issues, refer them to the strategic planning review to be a part of. Thank you.
We can do a motion to that effect right after this done if you want. Okay. Okay, on the receiving the reports, all those in favor? Motion carried. And then you'd like to move the, yeah.
I'll move that we refer the critical water issues to the strategic planning session review.
Do we have a seconder? Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Mastrangelo. Any further comments? So we'll make sure that this is on the agenda for strategic planning discussions and we'll have a full report. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so that brings us to item 10.3, which is Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Climate Leadership Steering Committee. It's another report. Would anyone like to speak to this? I didn't want to assume, Director Cote, but please go ahead.
Thank you. So I did attend that and the reports there. If there's any questions, sorry for the spelling errors. Thank you.
No worries. Any comments or questions? And go ahead.
I certainly appreciate that, and we'll flag that at a staff level. We're having discussions on who and how we can partner to go after some potential project grants that would tie into some of the work that's being done. Whether we do that through the VICC-CL or whether we do that more just within the region is something that is certainly becoming a matter of discussion with my peers across the region. And so I think in line with your water motion and other elements around climate change, it'll certainly be a subject for discussion on November 8th.
Okay. Would you like to move a motion to receive the report, Dr. Cote?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Director Beckett. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to item 11, which is unfinished business. So this is a tabled motion, which means that it has been moved and seconded already. For our benefit, I'll state out the motion and who moved and seconded it. So Director McClellan moved it. Dr. Jack McClellan moved it. Seconded by Director Roth. And this was on September 27, 2023. And the motion reads that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District requests that the provincial government declare an emergency route through Horn Lake and that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Transportation Committee review all access routes for the long term. And then there's a note, once lifted from the table, the motion is back on the table for consideration, which means that we're now in discussion. Would anyone like to move? Oh, there we go. Director Boyko, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. First thing I'd like to have this vote that will be upcoming recorded. And I'd like to get that read back for the corporate officer, please.
Okay.
But my comment would be that this discussion's been going on for decades, and Director Jack McClellan has been involved with it from the city from a lot of that, has a lot of history with it and all the different routes in that. And I know that there is a committee that's going to be going forward looking at all the various options, but this is about getting some emergency route set up and pre-planned so that if something happens tonight or tomorrow morning, no one's stuck where they are. I mean, we can put cots out there and get hotel vouchers and all that kind of stuff, but business will grind to a halt immediately. Where I am currently, we're shipping out a perishable product tonight in about 1 hour. If it doesn't make it to Vancouver, we're wasting about $500,000 of product. That is real money that's not really factored into, you know, hotel costs and all that kind of stuff. So there needs to be some kind of emergency route set up. So that's the premise of this, to get something in place that's ready to go at a moment's notice, so that we don't have a situation that not destroyed our economy, but seriously hobbled it for, you know, 3-4 months of summer. That's the premise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Dr. Haggard, go ahead.
I realize that the Transportation Committee, they want to be looking at a long-term alternate route out of Port Alberni, which makes total sense. But I'm wondering if also we could expand that they also look at having an emergency route, because I don't know, is Horn Lake the best emergency route at this point? There's so many options. I think that committee should be expanding its reference and try and determine that and then make a recommendation to the board. I just don't think that this board has enough information to make that decision right now.
Thank you. Next up is Dr. Siga.
Thank you. I don't think we should be dragging our heels on this. I think it is critical to get this motion on the table and signal that we are serious about getting an alternate emergency route and having it established. And I also would like to present the idea that we need to get some legal advice on private road because it's my understanding that public dollars were used to build these roads.
Thank you, Dr. Siga. Any further comments? Dr. Sparrow, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So I know we want an alternate route, and then Horn Lake was one that been put on the table for years, but is the route good enough to put a semi across tomorrow? Because if we declare this, and something happens, I know logging trucks go down there, but we're talking about semis which have a different characteristic to than a logging truck would. I know we can go through U-boats, not a great route, not great at all, but it can be done tomorrow. Can this be done tomorrow if we declare this, or do we have to do upgrades to get to a point where we can actually put semis down? Thank you.
I think that's a good question. So as last comment before we vote, I think I'm going to say a couple things. I think that there's no harm in moving this motion, but I think we have to understand that the province will come back and go, that's all well and good. In fact, it is an emergency route already, but it only is active when there is a real capital E emergency. That's literally what Modi's going to say. And a real emergency isn't a shutdown for a couple of 24 hours. That's just not how it's defined legally. So we can advocate for more than that, but there is no legal mechanism that will magically open either Horn Lake, and Yubu's already open, but it's not going to magically open Horn Lake and allow for commerce to occur through that territory unless there's a capital E declaration of emergency thing happening. And I think that's the one thing we have to understand here. So as long as we understand that it's just going to be, we can move that, but we're just going to get that letter back. So we can do it. It'll show and it'll put it on the agenda for a discussion in the future. And I think there's value in that, but we don't have the ability to just declare a route and open it up. The province does. And even then they have to tread carefully because of the private land aspect, which is why I think what Director Siga has already mentioned is something that we need to look into or in real terms. So I think this is the beginning of a process, but this is by no means putting the province on anything other than a notice that we're going to have this discussion in a real way, which is why I'm talking about we need the lobby and we need to have an understanding that it'll be a back and forth, because I don't know that. I've done Horn Lake once and I don't think it's very good for commercial traffic at all. I think it's for people with 4x4s who want to be able to go get their Costco. Honestly. I think real trucks would be taking Yubu because that's the only route they have right now if Highway 4 is closed. Like 18-wheeler trucks. But there's no harm in doing this because I don't think it's actually going to do anything other than serve notice that we have to have this discussion faster than Modi wants to have it. So we got to get in the Premier's office at that point. Any further comments, Director Cote?
Thank you. Sorry to drag this on, but we did talk earlier about the emergency route. And I'm just thinking about, it's not just people that are trying to get out for economy things. It's also a medical emergency. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to have the airports have standby accessibility so that people with emergency medical appointments and that need is in place. I'll vote for this motion, but I agree with all the comments that we don't have enough information. It's just a start. I don't expect it to go anywhere. But I'd really like to see us try to reach the Premier's office and Ministry of Transportation going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Cote. Director Haggard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add to that, I don't think we're not ready to go talk to anybody yet. We don't have a good business case. How much did we actually lose in economic money and during our community, during the closure, during the partial closures? We don't know that yet. We're not ready to pass this motion. I would feel silly going to the province about talking about a route when you don't have enough information.
Thank you. Director Siga and then Director Boyko.
Thank you. I don't think that we should feel foolish at all about trying to promote the health, well-being, safety, security, economic and otherwise of our population. And in fact, I think we would have public support if we did a press release to the effect that we are looking at this and taking it seriously. Just having, again, I go back to Iceland where their people come first and the funding and the politics come second to people's needs. So I'm really happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Siga. And Director Boyko, go ahead.
I follow the sentiments of what Director Siga said almost exactly. And I think the number that came out of the West Coast was at least $50 million that affected business. And if you put in Port Alberni Downfield, it's going to double or triple that number. Whether we tell them it's 120 million or 150 million, I don't think that really matters. I think we need to move forward. And if we're going to sit there and tally up numbers from every business and everyone else out there, we're going to be spinning our wheels for the next year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Thank you, Director Coots. All opposed? Okay, it looks like a unanimous vote. Thank you. Okay, all those. That should be easy to make note of. Oh, sorry. Were you just gesturing then? Okay. Okay, your hand was out. I assumed it was a yes. Sorry. Does it matter? Okay, a no vote is a yes vote at that point. So I don't vote unless it looks like it's close, but that means I'm just going to accede to what is going through. No further comment. Motion carried. All right. So I think we do need to have a discussion after the first few meetings of the committee, because there are some things that Director Cote brought up, and this is a question leading out of that for Daniel, perhaps. Director Cote mentioned things that have to do with hospitals, helicopters, airports. I'm not certain that that's covered off in the terms of reference of the committee, but it is still important enough to mention. Could we come back, or could you come back to me and to Director Cote with suggestions on where we would follow up on that? Please go ahead.
We certainly can. And when the Transportation Committee meets, that's actually when we're going to set the parameters for our first initiative. So the committee itself covers all transportation in the area. And I think it's just incumbent on that group to have the discussion and say, what are we looking at as we look at the alternative route? What are we going to be putting together? it'll be an opportunity at that point to say, yeah, we want to consider our airports engaging air travel as well. There's nothing wrong with that. That would be the time to have that discussion, set the parameters, and then as staff, we can go out and come back with how it is that we can most effectively meet the needs of the committee's discussion.
Thank you for that clarification. So that can be brought up then. Okay, that brings us to item 12, which is late business. If we don't have any question, or item 13, which is question period. So we do have folks in the gallery, as well as, oh, I forgot to mention the email address at the beginning of the meeting. Do we have any responses at acrd.bc.ca?
We've received no responses either over Zoom or in the email today.
Thank you. Anyone in the gallery have any comments or questions? Please come up to the podium thing and make sure you hit the top button so the folks online can hear you too. Oh, and you have to identify yourself and give your address.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Heather Powell, and I'm from 3133 Alberni Highway, the Hollies Golf Course. The reason why I'm here today, well, actually not the reason I'm here, let me back that up a little second. I just want to say I really enjoyed this meeting today. I was at the last meeting as well, and I just have found that as a public person that, doesn't come to meetings, that it's been really informative. And I do really appreciate all the board members and the hard work that you guys have been doing. So I just want to say thank you very much. It's beautiful to see that road, through the Banfield, to be such a success. And then we have, because the purpose was to get something done, somebody had to actually get something done, and that's why it got done. And it's very similar with the transportation that we're talking about with Horn Lake and emergency services. There's going to be somebody that's going to have to step off the cliff and actually get that job done. So, but that's not why I'm here today, not what I wanted to talk about, but I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for all of your thoughts. The reason why I'm here today, though, is in regards to transparency and communication in regards to the planning and the planning department. I wanted to talk about how long it's been taking to get applications through the department and some of the communication challenges that we've been having as taxpayers. The gentleman that left here today frustrated. I've never met him before, but I understand that his process that he's been going through and different processes has been 3 or 4 years. Time is money for all of us little entrepreneurs that are out there that are trying to make the world work. And the planning process is taking a significant period of time. I just wanted to ask, because I've been on other municipalities' websites, and I've noticed that the transparency between when there's an application that's at one of the different areas, at the regional district of Nanaimo, they have all of the current applications for rezoning or development permits or anything like that, policies and procedures. They actually have those things listed right on the website. And it's the current applications as well as past applications. So somebody from the public or anybody can go online and they can actually see all of the current applications that are on there. And then when people have questions about it, when they come to meetings like this, they can actually have a look and see what is going on and what is being asked for. So today, when I showed up at this meeting, there was just these letters out front, but it doesn't actually have the applicant's information on there. What are they doing? It doesn't have their application process, what they're actually asking for. It doesn't have a map of their property. And I know some people might say that that might be a freedom of information thing, but this is actually a public process. And I went through all the municipalities across the island, and 2 of the municipalities that do not post any of that information are actually the city of Port Alberni as well as the ACRD. But, Comox, Courtney, Parksville, Nanaimo, the RDN, Victoria, Saanich, they all publicly post all applications and rezoning development permits. So then everybody knows what's going on and the public can be, everything's transparent, and everybody knows what's going on with the application. So I was just wanting to ask the board or board members if there's any possible way that we can have a more transparent application process, since it is a public process. In some cases, like the Regional District of Nanaimo has a quite substantial website, and I know we're just getting there. But in some cases where they don't have that, they just have a list. And they have the name of the property owner, they have the PID, the correct information, and then they actually just have the whole application forms so everybody can look at. So I just wanted to make that request of the board. If we could have a more transparent process, that would be fantastic. Secondly, I wanted to talk about measurement and accountability to us taxpayers in regards to commitment of the process, the policy, the procedures, and the people that are giving us our information. So the development process has not been streamlined, as some people might lead us to believe. I put in an application in May. I had for a temporary use permit. I've only just heard, because I've been badgering and asking, what's going on with my permit. I had a meeting finally a couple weeks ago, and I was asking, what's going on with my project, what's going on with this temporary use. And to date, I still don't have an answer of when anything's either going to go to the board or the ACRD. And it's been a 6-month process basically for just a temporary use. And the planning department has all the information, and I have all my communication by emails asking them, what's going on. I have a development permit that I put in over 2 years ago, and I still don't have any written confirmation from the planning department about when or how we're going to be moving forward. When I asked about that during our meeting the other day, I got you need to change how you're doing things. Maybe we'll talk about this after the temporary use permit has been approved. I'm very frustrated. I've been out there pounding the pavement and asking other people, other taxpayers, and saying, hey, what is going on? Like, how long did it take you to go to a board meeting with your development permit? And other people are saying that it's taking 2 to 3 years. And other people tax-paying people are saying that when we finally get there, the information isn't necessarily accurate. They're very frustrated by the process. So I just wanted to bring this to everybody's to the board, because I've been personally told that right now there's between 40 and 50 development permits that are part of the planning department. And that's one of the reasons why it's taken 6 months for even my temporary use permit to be heard. But I have no way of verifying them. I don't know how many development permits are in Sprout Lake, how many are in Beaufort, how many are in Banfield. What is actually going on, and how is the planning department going to be basically accountable to us taxpayers? Because when we pay that $5,000 for a rezoning application, we're not hoping for 5 years from now. We're wanting to get things moving forward quickly. And the fellow that had to leave that I don't know, for example, we have grant money that we're talking about for creating more single family homes. And that's part of the policy. That was part of what we did today, was have a look at, grant money for housing from CMHC. And yet the very first thing, the poor fellow, he's been waiting for a 2-lot subdivision. He originally applied for having little cottages where he is. And, and he's sent away today completely frustrated because he's waited so long. And so I'm just asking if there's a possible way that we can look at streamlining some things. I know I'm running out of time, but I also just wanted to mention that this isn't a new thing. I had received some information that I was to apply for a permit And I applied for that permit, then I paid for that permit, and then my permit was declined 8 months later. This is constantly happening all the time. And I'm just asking that there's some accountability. There's much better transparency from the planning department to us taxpayers, the people that are waiting and the people, let's face it, it's the taxpayers that are moving these little projects forward. And I think we'd like some accountability and some transparency about what's going on. Thank you so much.
For your comments. All right, so from a process perspective, I think the understanding for the fellow the Von Brendel application was that it was set to move forward until, I don't know, however many 20 something form letters were sent in between the materials period and now. So they were sent in quite late, which changed the decision of the director on moving forward with the project and going through a public hearing process. So that's the idea. The information that was, so for that individual, I think he was expecting for this to move forward with all 3 readings right now. And then that was decided to go into a public hearing process, which will delay those things. So the reason why that happened, it seems, is because the public sent in a bunch of form letters saying that they have concerns. So it is the public's right to have their say in regards to any development variance or whatever it is that they were doing here. However, it is also things like that happen that lead to delays. So it really depends on the input that directors receive from the public regarding these projects as well that can lead to delays. It's not just the department itself. So I think the characterization that it is only the department that leads to delays in applications and that sort of thing isn't the full story. In fact, a lot of this has to do with people hearing something is going to happen, and then they come out of the woodwork with form letters, and then everything's late. All the opposition is late, and then suddenly that kind of disrupts those things as well. The decision-making process that happens at the board level must consider all of the input that is given from the public, even if it is later than it should be and as disorganized as it can be in the past. And that leads to a lot of frustration on all ends. That being said, I would note that the regional district has only gotten to a full bench of staffing, like maybe 2 years ago, that it has been pulling teeth to convince successive boards to allow for a full bench of staff to be in the regional district to do the job. And so we've only had that for a couple of years now. And one thing I will say, in addition to that, to support what you're saying, is that the ACRD, and I would say probably the whole West Coast, has been behind on a lot of innovations in local government because of different taxpayers who don't want to pay for it. So when this is one of the natural consequences of kind of penny pinching and not really being wise about the dollar, was it being penny pinching instead of pound? And like, it is frustrating to see. We are far behind on things like solid waste and recycling, and we're just now diverting organics. And the only reason we do that, it feels like, is because Port Alberni decided to do it. And this has real consequences with the landfill. And it took forever to get to that point. We were the last regional district, probably in BC, to have a proper recycling and organics diversion. And a lot of that has to do with the culture that I came into even 10 years ago. So there are a lot of things that we need to do to discuss efficiencies and improving the responsiveness. And a lot of it has to do with the systems that aren't yet in place because we haven't made that investment because people were gun shy on making those investments back then. And so we just now had a meeting today talking about efficiencies that we can bring in during this strategic planning discussion that can streamline these processes by having technology like at the RDM, like in other cities and municipalities on Vancouver Island and beyond, that can help that transparency be put in place. It's going to cost money, so we have to put it in a strategic plan I do agree, and I think a lot of us around the table agree that it needs to be much faster in order to respond to the need for housing, because we don't want to fall as far behind as many other cities and towns and locations have as well. In terms of that transparency as well, I think what you're asking for as well is some sort of place to centralize a lot of the information. People around the table, we kind of live and breathe this stuff, so we know where to find the information, and it's always included in the agenda packages. But sometimes you have to go back several months because of those delays to have those agenda packages in front of you. If there's a way to centralize that stuff, it can be done. It'll just take the time and the money to do it. And once again, that's a taxpayer discussion with the whole board.
I'd just say one little thing about that. It's as simple as on a piece of paper, writing down, because I did this, I don't have it with me today, all of the different development permits that have been processed, because I went through agenda by agenda to see how many they were over the last year, 2 years, 3 years.
Mhm.
And there's not that many. It's not too difficult for the department to have a look, write down every single one. They're all by form number. You guys have form numbers for every single permit that has been pulled. It's in a database, and you can pull up that and just have it as a list. Some of the municipalities do that, and it's not interactive. It's not even interactive. It's a simple list. And then if somebody has a question about it, they at least know that they can go to the front desk and find that public information right at the front desk because it's public. And so the challenge is that we don't have anything like that.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of work to go through each one of those agendas. But the fact that it's on an agenda and there's a number associated with it, I'm sure that like Mike can pull up every single development permit that he's done over the last 5 years. Like that permit number is sitting written, and all the ones that have been processed, the ones that have been declined, the length of time that it's taking to process those applications, all of that stuff should be public knowledge, and it should be posted somewhere. I don't know, are there 40 to 50? Can you name off 40 to 50 in any one of your areas? Is that like five in Banfield? Is it 5, 6, 7, 10 at Sprout Lake? How many? So I'm just saying that as the public, I'm asking for that to be transparent so that when I see that it's been 6 months before I've even gotten an email, and I've asked again and again for just an email back to me, then I understand, well, they're really busy because, my gosh, they're putting together hours and hours of all these other permits. And then I'd be okay with that.
Okay, thank you for that. Director Boyko through the chair.
I'll be quick, Chair. I just want to say that I've had this same sentiment passed on to me through multiple people in many electoral areas. And having some transparency, such as available in the other regional districts, should just be an IT matter of putting them up on a website saying, there's 13 steps. This is where each one is in the process, and making it as transparent and visible for everybody. Thank you.
I think we're all agreeing here. So, Dr. Cote?
Thank you. I too have had these questions in the past and have talked to staff about that. Where an application is in the process, and was given the information that we would be looking at that already. So where it's in the strategic plan of having that integrated into our system, I don't know at this point, but it has been discussed. Thank you.
Absolutely. So this is an issue that is of high importance. I would urge the directors to put this high in the priority list for the strategic planning session to make sure that it is implemented. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for your presentation and your comments. Thanks. Are there any other comments from the gallery? Questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. If we get a motion to recess the meeting. Thank you, Director Beckett, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call the Hospital District Board of Directors meeting to order. And recognizing that we're holding this meeting on the unceded territories of the Huipetches Shuswap First Nations, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do so. I'd also like to recognize we have directors calling in from other territories, and I'd like to acknowledge those First Nations with our gratitude and our respect. And just a notice that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on our website. So first we have the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions from the directors? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Director Jack, second by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is the Board of adoption of minutes from the Board of Directors meeting September 13th, 2023. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I get a motion that the minutes of the Alberni Clayoquot Regional Hospital District Board of Directors meeting held on September 13th, 2023 be adopted? Moved by Director Cote, second by Director Jack. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No petitions, no correspondence for action. Correspondence for information is a information dated October 3rd, 2023 from the Island Health Communication regarding Island Health's baby bed program. So can I get a motion this correspondence be received for information? Moved by Director Beckett, second by Director Jack. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. So next we have reports. Banfield Health Center, Director Beckett.
No report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alberni Clayoquot Continuing Care Society, Director Siga. I don't see her anymore.
I think she's headed.
Okay, so West Coast Native Healthcare Society, Director Cote.
No report. We have a meeting next week.
Tofino General Hospital, West Coast Directors. Do you have anything, Director McEwen?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Alberni Clayoquot Health Network, Director Cote.
Thank you. No real report. We have a meeting next week, but I did deliver to UBCM to Minister Dick's report, and I'm supposed to follow up and send some information. So I will have to do that. Thank you.
Next is West Coast General Hospital. There is going to be a grand opening of the ER expansion on November the 10th. And they asked if I would be able to attend and say a few words. Unfortunately, I'm going to be in Phoenix with my 3 grandsons. And I was wondering if Director Jack, if you would be able to attend and say a few words. November the 10th, and they said approximately 11 till 2, but I'll give them your information if you're able to attend.
Friday? Yeah.
November the 10th between 11 and 2. I'll give them your contact information and they can go hold of you directly. I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other reports? Seeing none, could I get a motion that the Regional Hospital Board of Directors receive reports A through G? Moved by Director Cote, second by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Any questions from the public? No public. Any questions online?
Receive no questions.
Okay, a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Director Jack, second by Director Beckett. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. If we could have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Motion carried. I might be able to go pick up my kids. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Best of luck with the transportation, Fred. I don't know what it is. I assume it's something seafood related.
as long as the roads are open, things will be progressing in a timely manner.
Great.
Thank you.
Have a good one.